What's up, Disrupt Nation? So my name is Anthony Delgado, and this is another episode of the Disrupt Podcast. And today we have a special guest. I guess, can we call you a founder? Is that fair to say?
I'm an early person in a whole new cryptocurrency called NDAO.
And what is NDAO?
So NDAO is the first buoyant coin, and a buoyant coin is different than, say, Bitcoin, Ethereum, where you've got very volatile prices, and it's different than a stable coin where it's just flat with respect to the dollar. NDAO is a buoyant coin that's designed for long-term store of value.
So I guess in today's market crypto climate, there's a lot of people who have been on this roller coaster of kind of ups and downs, and unlike maybe traditional investments that are designed to kind of go up in time, right? Like gold is like an example that we use, where someone buys gold and they hold on to it, and kind of slow and steady wins the race. So is that the kind of the idea with having a buoyant coin?
Yeah. So nobody can make promises that things only go up all the time, right? That's impossible. But the great thing about the blockchain, right, is you can try out entirely new economic mechanisms and sets of incentives so that you can kind of guide the market and provide a buoyant force. That's why it's called a buoyant coin that tends to make it rise over time and do so in a less volatile way.
So how do you accomplish that?
So there's a whole bunch of economics behind this. One thing about it is how some coins they just pre-mine a whole bunch of it and then they hand it all out to lots of people and use it for marketing and so on. We don't do any of that. Nobody got any NDAO for free. It's all paid for. So when people buy NDAO, they buy it along a pre-established price curve that goes up over time, and all the net proceeds of that go into an endowment, and that's why we call it NDAO. It's for the endowment. And that endowment of assets is managed in traditional assets. So it's in real estate, it's in precious metals and equities and hedge funds and things like that. And that grows over time. Now, as the price of new NDAO being sold is going up, that endowment is growing larger and larger. And so when there is a price dip, if the dip is too much, that is used as a pool of liquidity, and bids are put on the market to buy back NDAO at a floor price. And so it provides sort of guide rails, right? So you have a price at which the new NDAO is issued, and you have a price at which the endowment can be used to buy back NDAO. And when it's bought back, it's burned forever. So it's a way of reducing the supply.
So you have almost safeguards built in for these dips.
Yeah, they're like guide rails that tend to go in the direction a long-term holder wants. Then there's other mechanisms in there. So even between those guide rails, if the price starts falling too much from the target price, which is the price at which the new NDAO is being released, we have something called a stabilization incentive burn. And effectively what it is, it's like a transaction fee that's dynamic and gets larger the more the price drops. And instead of it going to somebody mining or running a node, it gets burned. And what this is, it provides a disincentive for people to be selling when the market's already suffering.
So the more that you sell, the higher the fee is, that transaction fee.
Yeah, so people start saying, hey, maybe I'll sell a different time. So what happens to the price if sellers stop selling? The price goes back up. Yeah, right? And secondly, the supply, since it's being burned, when that happens, the supply is also drying up. And so if you've got too much supply and that starts getting burned and the supply is being eliminated, now that's a long-term driver of the price going up. Another feature is, right, we want to reward people who are using it for its intended purpose, long-term store of value. So the longer people hold it, there's additional incentives people get. They get additional NDAO. And so that varies from, if you're simply holding it long enough, you can start earning an additional 10% of NDAO per year. But you can lock it like a CD. And so if you lock it for, say, 3 years, you get an additional 15% of NDAO per year. So even if the market price is holding steady, you still could be earning 15% more NDAO every year. So you're still feeling like, okay, we're going in the right direction as far as this part of my portfolio.
Very cool. what can maybe traditional markets or fiat currency governments maybe learn from how you guys are doing?
Well, some cryptocurrencies say we hate institutions, we hate everything about the non-digital world, we're going to do everything our way. We kind of say, you know what, there's some things that are being done right in the non-digital world, and there's some things being done right in the blockchain world, and there's some things that neither are quite doing as well as we'd like. So what we're trying to do is take the best of both worlds, add a few of our own new kinds of things to it, and blend it all together. So there's some things that are fine about the non-blockchain world, and we've tried to learn from what's really working well and how central banks try to stabilize currency. But we've also noticed that when you have everything be debt-based, right, you basically, if you create more and more debt that can't be paid off with the actual amount of currency in existence, you kind of create a building problem over time. So NDAO isn't a debt-based kind of monetary system. Instead, it's a very different kind of structure, and it's designed to actually have an early part. It's like an S-curve shape. So it has an early part where it can grow rapidly, an inflection point, and then an equilibrium at the end. So it's not one of these things where, okay, it gets really big and then everybody says, okay, the party's over, let's get out. It's designed to last a long time. It's designed to be stable and reach an equilibrium where there's benefits to everybody staying in with it for the long run.
I want to go a little bit to the side and talk about Ken as an individual.
Yes.
Right? So how did you get started into tech and into crypto and
Sure.
and get passionate about this?
So my background's in computer science. I was working on a PhD at Carnegie Mellon, artificial intelligence, that kind of stuff. I did a startup called WiseWire back in the 90s. I sold that to Lycos. I was Lycos' chief technology officer, but I've been a tech entrepreneur my whole life. And the way NDAO got started was, you do startups and sometimes they go great, sometimes not so great, but you start to take a little off the table, and now you're wondering, okay, how do I invest this so it's something that's stable and lasts for the long run, right? I was a person looking for how do I store value long term, right? And I looked at all the existing asset classes, equity, gold, and I was an early Bitcoin guy, and I watched my Bitcoin go up and down. I like, everything's making me stay up at night. Nothing's making me happy. What can we do with this new cool blockchain thing, right? After learning how all the different asset classes operate, all the statistical characteristics, what can we invent that's new that can do better than any of these other ones? And so a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my network, economists and traders and cryptographers, we kept trying to figure out, how do you craft this? How do you create the perfect long-term store of value? And eventually those conversations led to the set of ideas that NDAO is about. And so I went back to my network of folks who were running a VC firm, Cosimo Ventures. Cosimo Ventures then invested in Onero, which has then built NDAO. And so there's a lot of different players involved in all this, and the networks from all these past technology startups all got together, kind of like, you're getting the band back together, We kind of got the band back together of all the best people everybody had worked with, and that's kind of how this all grew.
If you, and it's very insightful to learn, like the Lycos days, right?
Yeah.
If you could give the 1990s younger version of yourself one piece of advice, what would it be? Don't say buy Bitcoin at $1.
Yeah, it wasn't even Bitcoin back then, right? Wow, that's a great question.
Could be about tech, could be about life.
Here's the thing that I didn't know back then. If you're young and you're doing your first tech startup, maybe it will be great. Maybe you'll crash and burn. You'll learn either way. But a lot of times, like in my case, I was fresh out of grad school. I did a startup. We got big funding. We sold it for a lot. You start thinking you can never fail, right? And it's so dangerous because you start thinking, hey, everything I touch turns to gold, and people keep telling you that. Very dangerous.
I'm Midas.
Yes.
I have the
and
touch.
Then you learn, we're all human. And now I actually enjoy working with people who have tasted some success, but they've also tasted a little crash and burn, and they've realized that no matter how good you are, the world sometimes doesn't always bless whatever you're working on. So you really have to look at all sides of things. You have to be protective of everybody that's involved in your project and your customers and everybody that's working with you, and try to see what you can do to make it a win for everybody, and always protect the downside for people too. And that's kind of what we're doing now, is really taking a sober look at how this stuff actually operates, and try to make a balanced set of risks, checks and balances, and try to do the right thing for the long game, because you don't want a quick hit at this stage in life. You want to build something that lasts, right? That's just part of what you learn over time. Even when I was younger, just getting a nice hit felt great, but you kind of want something that lasts in the end.
Definitely, I love that. I mean, you definitely learn more from failure than you do success. When you're with a startup and you're successful, you're not even sure why.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you might tell yourself, oh, it's me, I have the Midas touch.
Right.
But it could have been the marketing, it could have been the market, like you just had good timing.
Sometimes you just happen to be in the right place at the right time, and the universe has blessed you, and great. But you should take away from that the next thing will work like that. You gotta really learn how to manage all of the risks that are possible.
Well, I know we're running low on time because you have a flight to catch, my friend.
I do.
But thank you for coming here to Token Fest. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
What does disrupt mean to you?
The word?
The word disrupt.
It's a fantastic word in the entrepreneurial world, because I don't believe you should even try to create a new kind of business in the tech world unless you're looking at how the existing world works and you found a disruption that you can create, right? You got to overturn things, because there's always existing solutions for whatever problem you're trying to solve. You have to basically flip the game board over and create an opportunity for something new to create, right? You have to create room for that new thing to happen, and that means changing the way people even think about things that currently to do that. That's what disruption's about.
Awesome. Well, if people want to connect with you on social media and they want to learn more about this project,
yes,
where are the places online that people can do?
Best place for NDAO, it's NDAO, N-D-A-U, NDAO.io.
Very cool. Ken, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.